September 27th, 1940. In Berlin, inside the Reich Chancellery, three nations formally join hands: Germany, Italy, and Japan, promising to divide the globe into spheres of domination. It's called the Tripartite Pact, better remembered as the Axis Alliance. This agreement would redraw alliances, threaten America, and push the world closer to total war. And before we dive in, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and ring the bell. We bring you new stories from history every week, right here on Yesterday Now. Europe was in chaos. Poland had been crushed in 1939. France had collapsed in June 1940. Hitler's armies controlled much of Europe, and Britain stood alone under constant air raids in the Battle of Britain. Italy had entered the war in June, hoping to share in the spoils of Hitler's victories. Meanwhile, across the globe, Japan had invaded China in 1937, seizing territory and brutalizing cities like Nanjing. But its expansion caused tensions with the United States, which was supplying China and cutting off Japan's access to key resources like oil and steel. The world was divided. But there wasn't yet a unified other side. Britain was isolated, the Soviet Union had a non-aggression pact with Hitler, and the U.S. was officially neutral. By late summer 1940, Hitler wanted to discourage the U.S. from joining Britain. Mussolini wanted Italy to appear as a global power, not a junior partner. Japan wanted recognition of its dominance in Asia and protection against American interference. The solution: a three-power alliance. On September 27, 1940, Foreign Ministers Joachim von Ribbentrop of Germany, Galeazzo Ciano of Italy, and Saburo Kurusu of Japan met in Berlin. Cameras flashed. They signed a pact declaring that if any one of them was attacked by a power not already in the war, the others would join. Everyone understood this clause was aimed squarely at the United States. The treaty also acknowledged Germany and Italy's role in shaping a new order in Europe and Japan's leadership in Greater East Asia. It was not just a military alliance, it was a declaration of ambition to dominate two continents. In Axis nations, propaganda celebrated the pact as the birth of a global order. Posters showed the three flags united. Speeches boasted of unity between Europe and Asia. But reactions abroad were immediate. United States. The pact hardened American public opinion. President Franklin Roosevelt argued it proved the Axis aimed at world conquest. Britain. Winston Churchill's government framed it as proof the Axis would stop at nothing. Soviet Union. Stalin, despite his non-aggression pact with Hitler, viewed the Axis alliance with suspicion and began quietly preparing for the worst. Soon after, other nations joined: Hungary, Romania, Slovakia, and Bulgaria. These smaller states hoped to protect themselves or gain territory by siding with Hitler. The Axis alliance looked unstoppable. By 1941, much of Europe was either occupied or allied with Germany. But behind the scenes, the alliance was fragile. Germany and Japan had very different goals. Hitler cared little about Asia, and Japan had no interest in European politics. Mussolini constantly overreached, dragging Hitler into costly campaigns in North Africa and the Balkans. Japan resented Germany's secret dealings with the Soviet Union. Coordination was weak. They never even held a joint military strategy meeting. The real consequence of the pact came after Pearl Harbor in December 1941. When Japan attacked the United States, Germany and Italy declared war under the pact. This decision, binding all three powers together, brought the industrial might of the U.S. fully into the war. From that moment, the Axis alliance sealed its own defeat. By 1943, Mussolini had been ousted. Italy surrendered to the Allies. By 1945, Berlin was in ruins and Hitler was dead. Japan held out until August, when 2 atomic bombs ended its war. The Tripartite Pact had promised world domination. Instead, it ensured shared destruction. The Axis alliance was a marriage of convenience, bound by ambition, but doomed by mistrust and overreach. Its signing in Berlin in 1940 marked a turning point in World War II, and its collapse 5 years later reshaped the modern world. That's the story of the Tripartite Pact. If you enjoyed this episode of Yesterday Now, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next one. We post new history deep dives every week with daily shorts.